joined in studio today with Tim Johnson and Michael Rowley. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And today we're focusing on Granite Creek Copper, which is a play that went public very shortly ago. And this is a discovery mode. We're finding out who the company is and who is Tim Johnson, the man behind the scenes.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so Granite Creek Copper is the third company in the metallic group of companies. And it follows the same philosophy. So the metallic group's philosophy is to acquire brownfields projects. So that's projects that are near either an active mine or a mine that's close to going into production. It's the sort of ground position that if a major owned the mine, they would be exploring around their mine, looking for new mill feed, basically. So all three companies, Metallic Minerals, Group 10 Metals, and now Granite Creek Copper, have all acquired those large land positions, and we feel that's one way to de-risk because we know the geology is going to work for us because it's in known areas, and we're close to operating mines. So that also gives us a much lower level of a bar for success, because if we build out an inferred resource as opposed to a measured or indicated resource, we'll have a ready built-in buyer for that resource, and either to buy the company or to buy the resource itself. Yeah. As opposed to a lot of juniors who are looking at a much higher benchmark where they're going to have to take a project all the way to a feasibility study stage. We don't have to go that far to have success.
Yeah, so, great to hear. Yeah, and copper is one of those metals that people are really citing the shortages that are upon us because there really are no massive mines that have been opening up in the last few years. And you know that copper is used in almost everything you can think of, electronic or whether it's housing or whatever it be. So it is one of those metals that I've been watching just personally myself as an investor to see the progress of the price on copper, but also the production of copper. So it's interesting.
And the dynamics of the copper market are changing, because what a lot of people don't realize is as we move to an electrified society where we're electrifying our vehicles and other things, that's a great demand on copper. I mean, the amount of copper that goes into an electric car versus a gas car is huge, right? So as we move that way, there's going to be an increasing demand on the metal, and there's no replacement for it.
Absolutely. Well, we've got your presentation behind us. Why don't we go through this really quickly so we can find out a little bit more into where you're mining and what you plan on doing in 2019.
Yeah. So the first slide here, if we can stay on that slide for just a sec. There's an important thing about that slide, even though it's the beginning of our presentation, but the important thing about it is the topography. So this is an easy place to build a mine. There's no cliffs, there's no glaciers, there's no lakes, right? And when you're looking at a project, if you can look and say, okay, we can see how a mine can be built here and what the challenges are, that's where we start.
Gotcha.
So that slide, that demonstrates that pretty well. Would be a great place to build a mine.
Very nice.
Yeah, so this speaks to the fundamentals. We got a 111 square kilometer project. We're in a well-known copper belt. We have active mines or advanced stage projects on either side of us. So we're close to infrastructure. There's grid power close to us. There's a highway very close to us. We're in the Yukon, which is one of the best mining jurisdictions in North America. So we're very happy with the position that we have there.
Very nice. Yeah, Yukon is very, very mining friendly. Something that I've come to learn very quickly is insanely important, because if the government is not behind you, you may not be drilling. So it's always good to be in those regions.
They've got a streamlined permitting process. They have a very good relationship with First Nations in the Yukon. There's a lot of mining history in the Yukon. So that helps. I mean, when you're in the communities talking about what your project, if you've got people coming and wanting to hear more and know how they can help advance, that's great, as opposed to when you're in communities and told that you should not be there. That's always a bonus.
No, absolutely.
Yukon's in the top 10 actually in the latest Fraser Institute survey.
Oh wow!
For mining jurisdictions, yeah.
I don't know that.
Just in the last week.
Yeah, top 10 globally. So yeah, that's
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So moving on with the presentation here.
Yeah, so this really highlights our land position. We're at the yellow star there in the middle. We've got a large land position. And again, the Carmacks copper project to the south of us is an oxide-focused copper play. They've got a resource. They have a PEA that was produced in 2016. And then the Minto Mine at one time was our highest grade open pit mine in the world. They've since gone underground. That mine's currently under care and maintenance, but there's been a lot of interest from parties coming in looking to acquire that. So we see a bit of a consolidation play potentially in the belt with where we are and with two very advanced stage projects, that it could be attractive to a major to come in and acquire everything. But before that can happen, there needs to be significant resources developed, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely, and that's the goal of the course this next year, and then obviously moving forward. This is still a newer play, but lots of potential still here.
It's a newer play, but there has been historic work done on it. There was a lot of work done in the 80s. There was one company that controlled the entire belt at the time, so they did some drilling on the claims that we have now. They found that Minto was the easiest one to figure out. There's some complex geology that we're dealing with, so that's where they focused. And then since they let it go, it was staked privately. It's been held privately ever since. So this is the first time that this asset's been in a public company, and the first time some significant resources is going to be put towards it.
Very interesting.
It was a prospector that just did the very minimum work to keep the claims in good standing and keep moving them forward, but didn't have the resources to systematically explore the property.
Very interesting. And continuing on here as well.
Yeah, so there's we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on here. This slide just highlights that the major mining companies are active in the Yukon, and they're looking at projects as well. I mean, there's been some consolidation in the majors with the Gold Corp might not exist anymore.
Yeah.
But that they're still going to be active there. The majors recognize it again as a great jurisdiction to work in, and with potential for some really big resources.
Very nice. And just a larger overview of
of the land package, and you can see the Klondike Highway there, very close to our project. We've got road access to the project, and along that Klondike Highway there is grid power as well. So any operations in this area will be run off grid. They won't be diesel generator.
Very nice.
So that's significant as well. That brings your cost way down. If you've got a remote mine that's running off diesel, it's environmentally not very sound, and your costs per ton are quite a bit higher.
I can only imagine. Absolutely, like having nearby roads or having electricity. Those are definitely check boxes to check off when you're looking at a property for sure.
Infrastructure, absolutely.
So this is some historic work that was done by a company called United Keno Hill Mines. They finished here in the 80s. Again, they went to focus on other areas. So they left a lot of work unfinished. What attracted us to the property was some high grade drill holes that they had drilled. And then I think, like I said, there was complex geology, and they didn't quite figure it out. And then they moved on to some stuff that was easier to figure out. We feel was bringing some modern exploration techniques to our project, and the work that's been done on either side of us has really started to figure out that complex geology, and that's information that we can access. That's public information, so we can see the theories that other geologists have brought forward, that they figured out. The belt is a continuous belt of highly prospective rocks. And once they figured out on either end, we can apply that knowledge to what we have now to advance our project.
Very nice.
Again, this is a historic geochem, so soil samples that were done by that company and a few others. The land package that we have now is a bit larger than what they had, but it shows us that there is significant potential based on the geochem, the soil samples, and gives us a great starting point to follow up. One of the things we have found, however, is that when they did do soil samples, they did the target commodities, so they did copper, gold, and silver. They didn't do some of the pathfinder minerals. So sometimes when you're doing soil samples, the commodity that you're after doesn't always show up as well, but you can find other complementary minerals in the system that will show up a larger footprint. So that's some of the work that we're going to do potentially, is go back and look and see if there's other tools in our toolbox that we can use to try and figure out what's going on, trying to figure out the geology, and trying to figure out where the best drill holes will be.
Very interesting. And yeah, when it comes to drilling, I know obviously this company is it's much more recent than the other two companies in the group, Metallic Group.
Yep.
What type of drill package do you have for this year, or is this year really about planning and figuring out where to go from here for the rest of the year, or do you already have a few spots where you're like, you know what, no, I think this might be a great spot. Let's start a small drill program here.
Well, that's a good question. So we do have, based on previous historic data, we do have drill sites we could go drill right now. However, my feeling is that a lot of junior companies drill too soon, right? You really need to do the groundwork to make sure that when you do drill, you're going to have the highest chance of success. It's would be easy just to go out and punch some holes and offset from another one and hope that you can keep advancing. But we've recently acquired a database that was private, hadn't been made public, done by the previous operators. So we've got a lot of data compilation to do to put that all together. We've got some 3D modeling to do where we take the historic data, put it into a 3D database, and start to try and figure out what's going on beneath the surface. We've got more geochem to do. We've got more geophysics to do. So to answer your question, it's possible we'll drill this year, but I think most of this year is going to be focused on bringing up those targets to a confidence level that we feel better about, and developing more targets. Right now, we've probably got 4 places that like we could easily drill, but I think there's 6 to 8 that need more work. So when we do go to drill, I want to have that higher confidence. Yeah,
it's a good point to bring up as well, that a lot of people sometimes they're drill, and you spent a lot of shareholder money, and then all of a sudden everything was a miss, or you know, most of it was a miss. And you have to also understand the timeline of a company as well. You don't start a company and then within 3 months, oh my goodness, now it's all blue sky. You know, it doesn't happen that way. It has to progress. You have to do your homework. You have to go. There's seasons to this. And I think a lot of people who are newer to mining and investing need to really know that there are different progressions that you make. I mean, Granite Creek Copper is in a different state than Group 10 Metals is, or that Metallic Minerals is, because they were started earlier, or they were started earlier, and they would be able to already go through the process that you've gone through and started a few drilling. So people need to appreciate when a company is taking the time to actually plan this out. It's probably for a good reason.
Systematic approach.
Absolutely.
And going on with the slide as well, just to go through the rest of this presentation, I want to make sure we went through this and heard it straight from the mouth of the CEO himself, what the presentation has inside.
Sure. So this highlights the belt itself and the prospective rocks. So you see the 3 main projects, the Carmacks, our project, the Stew, and then the Minto Mine itself. And you can also see all the small little mining symbols are mineralized occurrences. So you can see there's a lot of them throughout the belt. There's little showings that happen all over the place. It's our job to take those small showings, evaluate them, do the geo work that needs to be done, the geoscience on them to determine which of those you're going to advance and try to prove up a resource.
Gotcha.
This highlights the 2 active projects in the belt. So the Minto Mine, we can see there, it's was initially an open pit mine. Now they've gone underground. They've got some really nice grades. They got 1.6% copper is a pretty good grade, and it comes with some good gold and silver credits with it as well. And then you can see the several zones that Copper North has identified on their ground, and our project is just to the north of that. And the interesting thing about that is you can see that you can draw a straight line through their zones, and then you can project that straight line onto our project, and that gives us a good starting point. Because what they've noticed in the belt is that there's these discrete pods of mineralization. They all line up in a very linear fashion, and that gives us a great start to build on what they've done to the south.
Yeah, and that's, again, a very Metallic Group way of doing things, right? You're looking for past mines, or you're looking for one that's already producing, and finding ways of property adjacent to it, and seeing where it connects and how it connects. So it makes sense that's a part of the Metallic Group.
Yeah, and here we see a grade comparison of copper projects in Western Canada. And you can see the Minto Mine and the Carmacks project are the highest copper equivalent grades. So we're in a good district as far as grade goes, and now we just got to find some tonnage.
Absolutely. And that'll come with the drilling, of course, but that also comes with the planning, of course. Well, for our viewers, I know that they've heard about Group 10 metals and metallic minerals quite a few times. We've had you on, Michael and Greg, a few times, but first time coming on, Tim. So it's nice to see the third addition to the group.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you for coming on, and looking forward to seeing what happens in 2019 as it progresses. And we'll be sure to have you back on for some progress reports when they're available.
Well, we hope to have good news flow, and that's one of the things we're looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, guys.
Yes.